I wanted to talk about how to meet this moment, which feels like just so much change, right? Every day we're going to be bombarded with some systemic change, some huge thing, things that, I kept having this vision over the last couple of days. You know how they talk about Washington, D.C. as a house, right? The White House, the House of Congress, the House of this, the House. And you know how you watch those shows on HGTV. I know I love, if I wasn't a teacher, I would be one of those people that would decorate homes. There's something about the similarity about taking something beaten down and falling apart and then beautifying it. There's something metalicious about that in my mind, right? It's like, I do that in my shamanic work. I was like, I'm always trying to transform something like, oh, let's fix it or glue it or, decorate it or, breathe life into it. And I kept having this vision of the entire house being demolished. And it was being demolished because it doesn't really work, right? No one's happy with the house, right? The house has got old pipes, old plumbing. Nobody likes it, right? But then it's like we hired this wrecking crew. And whenever you've seen a house on those shows where they go, demo day, and everyone starts going crazy with their sledgehammers, and it's a violent, like, oh my God, don't, wreck the old thing, or you can't hang on. A true demolition is messy. And I kept seeing this like demolition, like the nerve. It takes a lot of nerve to demolish a house this size, right? And I kept thinking, wow, they're going to demolish it. But they don't have the heart vision of the future. They don't know how to decorate it, but they know how to destroy it. And maybe, this is something that's needed. This is part of the great turning, right? Once the house, if you watch those shows, it's all demolished, then they come in and go, okay, well, we could, put this over here now. Now we have all this space, right? We can create a new system. And I think one of the things that's so important about the work of the heart is bringing on those new systems with that new frequency, right? And I don't think there was another person that could be a demolition destroyer like what we have right now. It's almost like, wow, they have everything lined up to completely sledgehammers. They have a wrecking ball crew. They're coming in and energetically like, and in that process, our mom's old, tiles get demolished, everything. And we're like, no way. And it's like, but what is the potential as we move from one level to another? This is what happens, right? This is the nature of change, right? And so for me, it's very important that we're grounding, that there's a core group of people moving into this compassionate energy. As we midwife, right? They can destroy, but who are the builders, right? It takes a long time to destroy something that big. That's going to be a long demolition process. So, but what's on the other side? Because we know that's change. Everything changes, the cycles of change. And so how do we take care of ourselves? That has been a question I've been thinking about a lot in this class and just with my teachings online and all the programs that I'm putting together. How do we take care of ourselves? How do we take care of one another? I have a lot of friends that are activists or a lot of visionary teachers and there's a lot of responses out there. A lot of people watching the house get demo will blame everyone, right? It's your fault. It's you did it. But there's so many causes and conditions, so many hands involved, and there's so much unseen. Like this is like a buildup. There's no who's to really blame. Like it's a collective energy of the demolish, right? It's like you can't point one finger and say, that's it. It's so simplistic to do that in a way. So let's not go into blame, right? It is what it is, but how do we find the resilience of the heart to bear witness to potentially, as these things collapse and people are dependent and there are needs of humanity has needs, the heartlessness that we see, that's what hurts me the most. Is like, wow, okay, how do I respond to that? And I think more and more I'm starting to look to the bodhisattvas and reading texts and studying. I spend a lot of hours of my day deep in study and reflection, especially right now, calling on Tara, calling on all of the ancestors who have been through these cycles. You know, the Civil War was a destruction cycle, right? Everything was burned down. And so it's like, well, what we want to do is envision a more loving, more just, more caring society. It doesn't matter what the politics of it is, a caring place. And so it really does start with us. It begins with us. So there's something I want to talk about tonight that is about this longevity that Dr. King talked about. And I really have been believing that Dr. King was, prophetic. I think he was in a tremendous bodhisattva. When I was writing my book about Harriet Tubman, and I was having a lot of ancestor dialogue, she would talk about Martin Luther King and her being from the same lineage. He was born only less than 12 years after Harriet Tubman died. You all know that, right? And so she left off, right? She had to go. The body, in the 90s, she didn't want to go. She was like, okay, gotta go. But here, there was a baton handoff, right? And I think it's important that we have to think of not only our spiritual lives, but this arc of justice that he talked about. Remember, he said the long arc of the universe bends toward justice. And so I feel that we have these these waves right now where it feels like, oh my gosh, all the way back. But are we back where we started? Or are we, no, we're moving and we're moving. And I think it's important to remember that there is a higher power. What looks like the highest power right now, it's not. There, the power of love and compassion, and that message that Harriet Tubman, and so much of my strength right now is remembering how much love, when you go through Dr. King's biographies, every teaching, they give you the highlight reels, but if you look at all the writings, and he was really a brilliant mind. Dr. King graduated from college at 16 years old. He was very advanced. He had a doctorate degree at 24 years old. So he, read and studied and consumed huge amounts of information and philosophies, right? Not only Gandhian philosophy, but ancient philosophy and all. He was just this, incredible mind. I think sometimes they downplay that a little bit because he was a preacher, right? He was a preacher. So we see that side, but we don't see this incredible, someone who studied all of these systems, not only of oppression, but systems of liberation. And then his own spiritual path was so important. When you read the biographies, his conversations with Jesus, his conversations with love, his devotion to like, I will not react how they're reacting. I refuse, I'll die, with this loving stance. And he said that many times. He told the story of being a child in a store with his mother, and he accidentally stepped on this woman's foot and she slapped him. And he was so shocked. His family was incredibly loving. The beginning of his biography, he says, my mother and father never quarreled, not one day. They showed tremendous love and affection to him every day. So it was highly unusual. He has such a loving family, And so the woman slapped him and he was so shocked. His feelings were hurt, but just the shock of it, because his parents never even raised their voice to him before. He was, very kind child and very angelic, and he did everything he was supposed to do. He never needed to be yelled at or anything. And so he was in this interview telling the story, and then it was in his biography, and he said, they said, did you want to hit her back? Or, and he goes, no, I would have never done that. I would have, no, that wouldn't have crossed my mind to do that. But he said just the shock of that violence coming toward him was what was so jarring, because in a way his family protected him when they were in their home and in their church and in their community. And so just this deep love. And I just keep believing that in that, there's the greatest masters on the planet. Everyone is reminding us that. So, but it's not just love alone, it's the practice of it. Now is the time where we've got to be not only calling in the ancestors, but we need to be in deep prayer now. And the more you are resting in your heart, the more your mind is like, okay, I want to awaken for the benefit of others. So I want to talk about this mindset that has been so liberating for me to keep going back to. And it's almost like I'm reprogramming year by year, deepening it. And this is the quality of bodhicitta. Okay, so bodhi means enlightened, and chitta means mind. So it's the enlightened mind. And this is what we do. We do our practice, our heart practices, not just for ourselves alone, but we do it to heal ourselves so that we can then go be of benefit to others. Because to tell you the truth, a lot of people out there in the world trying to help really aren't that effective, right? Because they haven't purified their own heart yet. Right. So they're out there battling, and you see it online all the time, like people raging on I mean, it's like, oh my goodness, it's just like it's not effective. Right. So on the Dharma path, what we do is we say, okay, because I actually want to create a lasting change. I want to be like Dr. King. I want to be like Tara. I want to be like an angelic being. I want to embody Jesus. I want to be like Mother Mary, right? We practice with that in mind. And we practice, and that gives you fuel to practice. You're not just doing this by yourself, for yourself. You're doing it, yes, to heal, but your higher motivation is when I'm ready, this love is going to then move me into action. I'll be able to, when I'm in a loving place, guess what, everybody? I'm clear in my actions. My body becomes a vessel of compassion. I know what to write. I know what to say. When the mind is in a turbulent storm of anger and frustration and judgment and blame, there's no clarity. There's just pain. And those waves come, those tsunamis come. But this quality of bodhicitta is what every great master had, from Maharaji to Neem Karoli Baba to Yogananda to any saint, any being who's ever lived on this planet that had a movement of real consciousness change was rooted in the heart. Because we can't just beat people into change. We can't beat people into DEI, I'll tell you that. It's all being thrown out because that's only one level. It's here. People have to see interconnectedness. You can't program somebody into that. It's just the old program that's way stronger. Let me tell you, right? We have to want that. It has to be an expression of wisdom. It's not even something you have to learn. It's just innate in you, right? It's like, oh yes, all beings, of course, right? It wouldn't even be a concept you had to figure out, it arises in us through wisdom and compassion. So this quality of bodhicitta is what I want to impart with everybody tonight, because this is, when you look at Dr. King's full life, and, I was reading about when he graduated with his doctorate degree. So imagine he's in Boston, he gets a doctorate degree, he marries beautiful Coretta, right? She's from this beautiful family. The families love each other. She's compassionate and beautiful, and was a singer, was studying songs, and they fell so deep in love, and what a great life. They could just stay in Boston, right? And he got these really incredible job offers, right? To be in academia, right? And then he kept thinking, well, I don't know, he was studying ministry, and he gets this letter from Dexter Street Baptist Church, tiny little church in Birmingham, Alabama, such a segregated, hey, because they call that the cradle of the Confederacy, right? Birmingham, Alabama. And here they're in a segregated Boston, which was kind of like, the promised land at that time. And he goes, well, honey, look at this little church. They need a pastor. And then she was like, okay, let's go. Right. They was like this. They were doing it for bodhicitta. Like, it would have been so nice to stay there. But he's like, we didn't do all this. We have a calling. And some of you might feel that you have a calling on your life to do something to contribute to making the world more wonderful. And I think this is a very powerful time to anchor in your spiritual path with these heart practices, with this idea that I'm not just doing this for myself, I am doing this for the benefit of all beings. Even if it doesn't happen in this life, let me plant that seed in the ground, right? Because that's a powerful motivator, right? I'm going to stay the course, not just for myself, but for all beings. I'm going to do these practices, not just for myself. Yes, I get healed in that, but I'm doing that so that I can then be a lamp for others, a real lamp. Like, we don't, giving people food and water and housing is a beautiful, but there's also another level of help when our heart is really awake and we are really in that seat and we are really activated and we're allowing our body, speech, and mind to be an instrument of this love. When we are being a channel, we can create a tremendous amount of good. And I feel like there's a lot of beings that I'm meeting right now they can understand that, right? And that is why I practice. That's why I'm staying in Georgia. I have these thoughts of escaping to Costa Rica routinely. I do, right? Especially when it's a blizzard. And I think about, oh my God, I could be, but I think, no, I'm going to stay the course. Harriet was like, Georgia. I would have never moved to Georgia. I tell this to Baba. No, this was an act of bodhicitta. And so now I'm practicing every day so that I can carry forth whatever this task is to give birth to this community, this meditation center, healing temple that I keep seeing here, right? But it's not going to come just from money. It's going to come from that spirit of a heart awakened that cares enough, right? That wants to serve. A life of service is a life of love, right? Ramana Maharshi, that's all he used to say, Neem Karoli Baba. Love, serve, and tell the truth. So that's it. Go forth, right? But how do we do that, though? We do it by these practices, compassion practices, love practices, over and over. We are training our minds. And you know what happens, everybody? The more you rest in this, the more you feel the power, because you're accessing not only Dr. King's frequency, Harriet Tubman's frequency, the Buddha, all these masters, right? You're on a portal. You're accessing your lineage of those walking with great heart through the tsunamis, through the fear, but not before you're ready. I don't think people should be jumping out on front lines right now because there is a tsunami. Like, let's be wise, right? When we're ready, then we go, right? And I think that, we have to be sure that we're stable and we're building up this force field. Does this make sense what I'm saying, everybody, about building the heart, the capacity? So when we're sick and we're not seeing clearly, guess what? We need medicine over and over and over. It's like every time I meditate, I remember my Burmese teacher that I did this 8-month retreat with. when I was in my early 30s, I did an 8-month meditation retreat. And he always used to look at me and he would say, Spring, meditation is like going to the beauty parlor for the inside. And there was something about that would make me laugh, right? It was like, right. He's like, a beautiful mind. How rare is this in this world? A mind that wakes up and goes like this. How can I be of benefit to all beings today? Even if all you manage to do is hug your cat and go out your garden, the fact that you're setting your mind, I'm going to, has great power, right? I'm going to try my best to awaken for the benefit of others, to heal for the benefit of others. Everything I do, I'm going to try to offer it to the benefit of all beings. This is what is the heart of all the awakened masters. This is what gives us the juice to not give up right now. This is what keeps us sane in the tsunami, right? As the house is being about to be gutted, right? And we're all sitting watching, right? Going like, oh my God, right? It's like, okay, we come back and we're doing, and we have to hold that reverberation. And I need these heart practices right now. When I go into my mind, I start suffering. Oh man, it's brutal in there. Right? That tsunami is here, everybody, right now. Right? It's like, and staying connected to all of the madness that's going on. Don't do it. Unplug from all of that until your heart is ready to go out and sail your ship in the middle of that storm and be a good, you're ready and you're like, okay, I got it. I'm steering. I'm good. It is better to practice and practice and practice and practice and practice. You will get the call, right? But in the meantime, we're purifying, we're healing ourselves so that we can create the new system. Somebody has to be the real dream weavers here, right? We are the collective dream. And when the heart is invested, then it's manifesting from that place of bodhicitta, which is inclusive of all beings naturally. You don't have to go to get trained. The heart already knows that information, everybody. The heart has wisdom far beyond here. The heart already knows all those. It knows all of it. It already includes all beings because in its true nature, it's unconditional, right? It's unconditional love. We're talking about that frequency, right? And that's the higher frequency on the planet. That's why people that do these practices, they always say it's all one. And when they're really rooted in that, of course it is. That's the heart knows that already. But the mind it's not caught up yet, right? There's this schism here. What do they say? The longest journey you'll ever take is from the head to the heart, right? And the programs are all here locked in the mind, like these mind generated. When people drop into their heart and their body, they naturally, a deeper wisdom unfolds. Every day, I feel like I'm becoming wiser by listening deeper to my heart. And wisdom is knowing when to sit down and take medicine of, long time. Maybe some people need to go off for a retreat for 1 year or 2 years. Some great masters stay in caves. One teacher, Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche, he spent 12 years in a cave. And then his students had to go bang and get him out. And then you know what? He spent the rest of his life around the world teaching. And he wrote the 37 practices of the Bodhisattva. And he made hundreds of commentaries on all the classics. He taught the Dalai Lama. He was one of the greatest Tibetan masters of the previous, century, right? But he spent that 12 years. With some people might make fun of you or laugh at you and be like, you're running away, but you're running toward your healing and liberation. This is very, very important, everybody.